One of the experiences that we all share is this fantastic sensation we get when we encounter somebody who's different. Someone who inspires that little voice inside us that says, you know, this person might be the one. The rush of euphoric, blinding desire and happiness, that constant preoccupation that puts everything in life on hold as two people let themselves rush over a waterfall into a love that just never ends. This is one of those stories. This is Tammy and Gordy's love story. Let's go back to April of 2002. It was an important day, Dan and Tracy's wedding day. And both Gordy and Tammy were at the altar, on either side of Dan and Tracy. Gordy is Dan's close friend, and Tammy is Tracy's sister. Since they were in the bridal party, they got acquainted during the night. Tammy was fascinated by Gordy's travels around the world in the Navy, which piqued her curiosity. Before the weekend celebration was all over, Gordy made a big impression on Tammy. Being a good sister that Tammy is, she collected and returned all of the tuxedos. The job was bigger than she thought, as the tuxes came back all tattered in random pieces everywhere, and a cummerbund here and a bow tie there. Diligently, though, she pulled it all together. And then Gordy gave her his tux. It looked like it hadn't been worn. Very clean, neatly hung, and even looked pressed. Tammy was speechless. And I tell you, that never happens. Who was this handsome Navy man? 2 years passed. Gordy returned from deployment in Okinawa, Japan, and made a trip to Wilson, Wisconsin to visit Dan and Tracy. Dan and Tracy were building a house and doing much of the work themselves. This was a different kind of house party. This was an insulation party. Tammy was there helping with the insulation, and all of them working like a team. This is when Gordy really noticed Tammy. He was so impressed that she was right in there, helping Dan and Tracy, putting up that insulation. They had a great time working on the project, and then finally finishing off the day with a beer and a pizza at Tammy's place. Gordy figured that this confident, attractive girl must have a boyfriend. She's got to have a boyfriend. Besides, how could it work, he's thinking to himself. He's in Gulfport, Missouri. She's in Hudson, Wisconsin. Well, there was real attraction there that day, and the two people who were really taking notice there were Dan and Tracy, both of whom were more than eager to see Gordy and Tammy come together. Now, how the first date came about really varies. It depends on who you talk to, Dan, Tracy, Tammy, or Gordy. Dan called Gordy and told him that Tammy wanted him to be sure to have her phone number, you know, in case he might want to call. Gordy thought, that's great, but what could really happen? I mean, he's in Missouri, she's in Wisconsin. Well, since Gordy had the number, there was really no reason not to call. So he did, and they talked, and they both enjoyed their time on the phone immensely. They both agreed that they should get together the next time he was in Wisconsin. And as it turned out, the next time to be in Wisconsin was sooner than they thought, and unfortunate. Gordy's dad had passed away, and so he returned for the memorial service. The timing was bad, and their time there was short, but Tammy and Gordy agreed to meet for dinner on Sunday night, the night before Gordy flew back to Gulfport. They met at the San Pedro Cafe in Hudson. Gordy was a bit shy as he shared tales of traveling the globe, stories that Tammy was eager to hear. Gordy ordered a bottle of wine, and that little voice inside Tammy's head said, "No, not wine. You have a big interview tomorrow." And the louder voice said, "He's so cute. Drink up, girl." They drank and talked and shared stories of their lives and who they were. Whether it was practical or not, made sense or not, these two began to feel something happen between them. As they made their way out of the restaurant, Tammy wondered how this perfect date would end. She was hoping it would end with a kiss. And then she realized she invited this Gordy to spend the night at her place so that she could take him to the airport in the morning. How is this going to work? Well, they went back to Tammy's place, where Tammy fixed up the spare room. It soon came time to go to bed, and they found themselves in the hallway between Tammy's room and the spare room. As they talked, Gordy's mind frantically spoke to him. It's almost time to say goodnight. Should I hug her? Should I kiss her? Shake her hand, maybe. No, definitely a hug. Definitely a hug. Well, maybe a kiss. They said goodnight, and Gordy leaned in and pressed his lips to hers. It was the sweetest and most gentle kiss, and it sent Tammy into orbit. It was the kind of kiss that says, I wouldn't want to be anywhere else in the world in this very moment. Gordy turned and went into the spare room and went to bed. He didn't want to. But after all, this is a first date. Now, a bit of a side note here for the junior bridesmaids, Amanda and Brittany. Tammy wants me to tell you to never, ever, ever kiss on the first date. Unless you're 32. In which case, go ahead, it's working out pretty good for Tammy. Over the next 10 months, Tammy and Gordy racked up frequent flyer miles, flying back and forth from Gulfport to Hudson. Usually, no more than 3 weekends went by before they were together. Tammy felt strongly about Gordy ever since their first date, and those feelings kept getting more and more intense the more they were together. Finally, Tammy felt like it had gone on long enough without sharing how she was really feeling. So, while visiting Gordy in Gulfport, she said, "Oh, by the way, did I mention that I've fallen madly in love with you?" To which Gordy replied, No, I think I would have remembered that. This made Gordy a happy man. He had felt in love with Tammy for a while, and he wanted to be sure when he said it. But after Tammy said it, and the way she said it, well, he felt really sure. And he said, I love you too. According to Tammy, however, side note, Gordy may have technically said, I love you first way prior to this. You see, once she was leaving to fly home, and they were at the airport, and Gordy said, I've really fallen for you. Which technically could be interpreted as, I've really fallen in love with you. But that's only if you want to be technical. Gordy and Tammy's love for each other was really tested, with Gordy being deployed to Iraq for 6 months and flying back and forth until finally Tammy moved out to Washington, D.C. to be with Gordy. They were together a year and 9 months. Early in 2006, Gordy started thinking seriously about the idea of him and Tammy forever. He asked himself if she was really the one for him, and fortunately he agreed. In August, he researched diamonds and rings and made the purchase. Now it was just a matter of the perfect proposal. Gordy booked a getaway trip for the two of them in Times Square. It was Gordy's birthday weekend. Before going to New York, Gordy bought a new shirt, jacket, and shoes just for the occasion. Gordy hoped that Tammy wouldn't catch on to the fact that he was setting up something very special. Tammy very quickly noticed the new clothes. And she thought, he got new clothes. Why would he shop for new clothes without me? I can't believe he went shopping without me. That's so strange. Why is Gordy now shopping without me? She hadn't caught on to anything. They went to dinner and had a wonderful time. It was very romantic. And then they went back to their room to freshen up. Gordy sat on the bed and Tammy walked in and out of the bathroom talking about all the wonderful things that they had been seeing and doing in New York. How wonderful it was to be together. How great dinner was. Gordy patiently waited and listened, like he always does. Suddenly, Tammy marched out and sat next to Gordy and said, I'm sorry. You know, here I've been going on, and we're supposed to be here for your birthday. We haven't really even celebrated your birthday. Is there anything that you'd like to do for your birthday? Gordy looked up at her and he said, yes. There is one more thing that you could do for me that would make it the best birthday ever. As he spoke, he slid off the bed onto bended knee. He pulled out the ring he had chosen and presented it to Tammy. Before she could even realize what was happening, he said, will you marry me? As he asked, the world slowed down as if it had stopped rotating for a moment. Tammy was speechless. First the tux, and now this. Tears filled her eyes. She was overwhelmed. And finally, after a bit, She said, "Yes, we really get to be together forever?" And Gordy said, "Yes." I give you Gordy and Tammy Meyer, everyone.